Hello and welcome back to another episode of Escaping Kerbin, where we aim to put a Kerbal on the surface of one of the outer planets of the Kerbal system. Today, we are going to be working on some exploration goals. We've got a satellite to send up, a little telescope to search the skies. We've got some science to do at home, and that's going to require us to build an airplane. Yeah, so it's gonna be a fun, jam-packed episode. We did quite a few things today, so without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here we are. We got a bunch of money, and we have a bunch of contracts still open that we need to work on. So as you can see there, it just kind of collapsed them as I looked through. I'm going to just go through the mission control and pick up any other relative contracts that sound like they would be fun. As you can see here, that ice shelf one, all it does is we only have to be in one location and just do a bunch of different experiments. So that is going to be an easy one for us to do. All we need to do is create a craft to get there. And of course, the ice shelf is at the South Pole. So we pick up another one, and then here is our contract to launch a telescope. So we go ahead and we take that, and then that's the last contract that we take. So first we're going to work on that telescope, since that has to take time to operate and start looking for everything. So I just went into the science just to remind myself of the technology that I have. We're doing pretty good as far as our tech levels go, so that's good. So here's the telescope that's provided by the Research Bodies mod that requires you to research the celestial bodies that you want to explore before you even get there. Like, we don't even know that a jewel exists. So yeah, just a typical satellite. I threw on some dishes because if we're gonna have something out there in a high orbit, we might as well make it dual purpose. So I'm just adjusting the antenna to keep control of it while it's in low Kerbin orbit, and I don't bother retracting it. I just leave it deployed because it's going to be in the fairing, so it doesn't have any risk of breaking up through aero forces. And then that way we don't have to worry about not having our antennas extended in time and losing control. It's a nice feeling. Throw on a little bit extra fuel just to allow it, just to keep it from running out. And then, as you saw, I threw a probe core and some separatrons on the base because this lower stage is going to be efficient enough to get us into our orbit, and so I want something to deorbit it and bring it back down to the planet surface and smash it into pieces, so that way we don't have space debris. So I noticed upon liftoff in the simulation that I didn't have enough thrust, starting thrust. So I just throw on these side boosters, give them some swivel engines, and some fuel ducts. That is duct, not fuel duct. We don't have ducts on our craft. That's in the RP1 stage with our animal containers. So now it's just a matter of making sure my staging is correct. And I have parachutes on both the lower stages because if we can, we'd like to get some money back. Once again, we're using the stage recovery mod that allows us to do that. Alright, so let's lift off. We don't really need to simulate this. We know that our lifter is more than capable of lifting this mass up to not only low Kerbin orbit, but potentially farther. So we're not even going to bother with the simulation. We're just going to go for it. And shortly, the side boosters finish, and they just fall down to the planet's surface. And we're over 2,000 meters at this point, so we don't have any worry of those pieces coming down and hitting our buildings and destroying them, because objects past 2,000 meters are no longer within physics range. Yep. So as you can see, we get ourselves all the way up to our apoapsis, and we have just under half of our fuel left. So this thing is very efficient. Without the side boosters, it can be an single stage to orbit, an SSTO. It wiggles around a lot. I didn't turn the gimbaling off, so it's never a pleasant sight to see your craft wiggling like that, but we handled it. And there we are. We got our telescope out. It's gonna start looking at things. And now I'm checking the contract to see what the orbit height needs to be. It's 200,000 meters, which is easy to do. So what we end up doing is we decide to put it at 900,000 meters, because you know, if we're in for a penny, we should be in for a pound, right? So let's just get this craft in a nice wide orbit, so the satellite dishes can maximize their usage. We're just gonna point ourselves at. Oh yeah, I forgot we had a contract to do science around the space of Kerbin. So I just go ahead and I do a telemetry report, because we don't have any science to do here, and we don't have any science on the machines. So here's my stages. My 2 side boosters got recovered, so that's nice. I can get some money back for that. So now we're just finishing up our burn, and that should bring us out to the far edges of our orbit. Now, what I should have done here, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just get out to the edge. So I'm coming up. I wanted to time warp just before our maneuver. So what I should have done here is I should have just put it all on the same stage, the exit stage, and had it fire its separatrons from here. But because I had the probe control on it, I grew comfortable with that, and I said, you know, oh, that'll be enough. So I go ahead and I separate, and then I get control of the telescope, and I plot in my circularization burn, so that way we can be at a nice 900,000 meters, both apoapsis and periapsis. So I hop back over to this craft, and then I find out, oh, I don't have any signal, because I only have a tiny antenna on it. So and the KSC is on the other side of the planet, so there's no way that we're getting signal from that. So now I switch back to the telescope, and then I come around to its maneuver. I go ahead and burn that. We're using Flight Computer for a lot of this, just to keep its accuracy. But as you can see in the contract, since our orbit is already above 200,000 meters, we can. Our contract is already counting down, so now it's just a matter of time. We just gotta wait for a little bit, so I can go ahead and I shut off that engine, see if there's any science that I can do or need to do. But other than that, I think it's just a matter of having the satellite in place. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch back to this, and I'm going to warp it around to the other side of the planet so that way we can have the connection of being close to the KSC. So I warp it around, and there's the KSC, and no matter how close I get, I still don't get connection. So this stage is kind of dead in the water. Sadly, and we did all that work to make it so that way it couldn't. Oh yeah, and I also lost electrical charge. So maybe even if I could have gotten a signal there, I didn't have any electrical charge to do anything. So, more space trash. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we are going to work on a small contract, a very annoying contract, but good money nonetheless, a tourist contract, to send a couple Kerbals underwater for about 5 minutes. They just want to be underwater for longer than they can hold their breath for. So we're going to do that. And of course, the most important part of any tourist contract, tourist mission or whatever, are the lights, of course. I mean, how could we possibly do a tourist contract without lights? So of course I spend much more time than I need to decorating. That's how it goes. So go ahead and throw fuel tank and a little Terrier engine, Beagle engine, excuse me. The Beagle and the Terrier are kind of comparable, so that's why oftentimes I just say Terrier, because in this instance, if you were trying to build this craft, the Terrier engine would do fine. You don't need to have Ven's parts like I do. That's where the Beagle comes from. It's Ven's stock parts or parts plus or something like that. All the mods are in the description. But basically, the Beagle just has a little bit more thrust, a little bit more kilonewtons of thrust. I think it even has the same ISP, but here we are. We have our 2 canisters of metal ore on the sides of the craft to let it sink below the surface. And we're going to launch it from our cove site, which is nice. It gives us access to the water immediately. So I just ease my way into the water, nice and fine. Don't want to go too overboard and start sinking all the way to the bottom. So I throw on my brakes and I get ready to check to see if we're splashed down, but no, we're not splashed down. We're landed. I don't know why it takes us as landed, but so then here I figured maybe it's the wheels, so I decided to come out and try to take them off, but for some reason the inventory system wasn't working. Maybe because I wasn't an engineer, maybe I didn't have the right tools, but so I go ahead and I bring that back into the vehicle assembly. And then now I have to start doing some rapid testing. So here I pull out some of the ore, so maybe it can float just a little bit, but also be underwater, but no go, too floaty. So I try it again with just a little bit more ore, and still too floaty. So then go ahead and we go back to the VAB. We're going to take these wheels off. Maybe it's the wheels that are counting it as landed instead of splashed down. So we go ahead and fight, but there's this lip that we can't seem to get past. So once again, back to the VAB. We're going to throw on a little bit stronger of an engine, and it's the swivel, so hopefully we'll be able to have some control. But if not, we threw on some reaction wheels as well. So we made it over the lip, but I forgot to fill up the ore container, so once again we float. So now the ore container is completely filled up, and the lip is once again the problem. Even with the swivel engine, I'm not really able to maneuver it. I barely get it to the side, but I decide to give up. It's not worth it. So instead, we're just gonna give ourselves a little bit of upwards momentum as we go. So we throw on a couple SRBs, and they are not strong enough to lift us, so we have to launch, we have to fire all engines. But thankfully the SRBs was enough to dip our head above that lip. And now they're still firing here, just underwater with very little thrust. And the thing is still coming up as landed, although sometimes it comes up as underwater and the timer starts to go. So I'm very confused at this point. The SRBs are still going, and I'm not sure. So I decided to time warp a little bit, and then I realized by time warping, the timer is going down on the contract that is counting as underwater adventure. So I just time warp my way till the contract is up, and then I just leave because we're done. We have done that contract successfully, and normally that one bugs out, and you know I have to just kind of do back work to finish the contract, just because it's like I've been underwater for hours and hours and hours, and for some reason I couldn't get it to go. But apparently all I had to do was time warp. So now we're just going to go ahead and get on to our next little bit. We have a contract to grab a little piece of science, just this target scanner, splash down in Kerbin shores. So I take my little rover here, I pop it down that lip, and easily put myself into the water. So then I go ahead and I do my target scan. I get the science from that, and that's nice. I transmit it because for some reason the contract didn't accept. And then I realize when it still didn't accept is that I'm not actually at Kerbin shores here. I was at a different biome. Grasslands, I think. So I have to come back, and because I didn't save the craft, I'm just gonna quickly rebuild. I decided to throw on a camera because I wanted to check and see if my probe control room is the right one or not. It is not, but you know, what can you do? We're gonna get there. We're gonna just adjust and download the right version until we get the one that we like. So yeah, so see, I put a camera on there to give it the old college try, but no luck. So now we just gotta turn off our reaction wheel so we can get actual control of it. And then hopefully without breaking, we come down this hill, and there we go, nice and easy. So let's just go ahead and fast forward this long journey to the water until right about now. There we are. So now we are at Kerbin shores, and so it should be able to complete the contract. I turn the reaction wheel on and just dip my head below the water to make sure that the actual device itself is underwater, so that make sure that it counts as being splashed down. And there we go. We completed another contract. So we're just booking through this. We're making money. We are gathering a little bit of science. Not much science, but that'll come. So now we're gonna work on the ice shelf contract. And that is going to require us to start making planes. I was thinking I wanted to do a plane episode, and I might still do just a episode where we just focus on planes and trying to make things to get science around Kerbin, or to transport people to certain areas to do stuff. But for now, we're just gonna, do the plane stuff here. So go ahead and put 3 experiments of each in there. And then I bring it back into the spaceplane hangar. It's just easier to put the experiments on when it's upright. I don't know what it is, but for me it's easier. We throw a battery and some solar panels there, and a Science Junior. Science Junior obviously gives us the most amount of science, so we gotta have it on there. And normally I used to do swept-back wings. I did a lot of airplanes with swept-back wings, but I've been really just liking these basic flat rectangular ones. They just, they've been working for me, and if they're working, why mess with them? So I throw on an extra Science Junior just to give it a little bit more body, so the tail wings can fit. And then I run a simulation. I just want to make sure that this plane can even take off. I just kind of rushed the build, so you know, everything is kind of slapdash. If you notice, the tail wing is at an angle. It's at a horrible angle, and I didn't notice this until the very end of the test flight. But look at that! It took off pretty nicely, pretty early too. This plane just wants to be in the air. And I don't have any of the control surfaces specified to what they should be, so the plane control is a little funky. Yeah, look at that. I notice what's wrong with the tail wing, and I'm beside myself. Yeah, there's a lot of turbulent forces as we turn. Yep, so I already know a couple changes that I need to make, and then I think about restarting the simulation, but I'm like, yeah, we're right here. Maybe let's see how this thing lands. You know, because we are going to have to splash down at the ice shelf. It's not a contract to do it above. It's a contract to do it in the water itself. So we're going to need to be able to land safely. And I wasn't intending to do a little stunt planing today, but just with the way that I ended up turning sideways and coming through the KSC this way, it was a little fun. I enjoyed myself. I know it's like practically nothing, but this is coming from a person who doesn't do planes, so any kind of quote-unquote stunting I can do, you know, it's fun. So maybe one of these days, maybe our you know what? Maybe our plane episode, we'll just mess around with planes. Like we won't have any big contracts or anything to do that. Maybe we'll just see what we can fly around the KSC. I think that's a fun idea. So here is another simulation, and I just tested to see that we had enough fuel to make it to the ice shelf. And we did, so I just wanted to show you that we did a simulation to do that. And now we're back in the real thing. We got parachutes on our wings now to just help us with landing. Yeah, look at this. Its weight is a little back heavy, so you know we gotta be careful not to smack the engine on the runway and break it off. But just look at that. Look how fast that thing takes off. Yeah, like before I even get to any of the buildings, it's just already up in the air and at speed. So here we go. Now we're getting ourselves pointed. We have 3 possible spots that we could land for the contract, but we take the one that's closest to us, obviously, as well as the one that's still in daylight. The other 2, we would be in darkness, so. A lot of turbulent forces as this thing moves around. You know, obviously not the most aerodynamic, not the most professionally built. You know, I wouldn't even bother putting a craft file in here because this could definitely be improved upon. So here I start playing around with the MechJeb autopilot system, but I don't understand it well enough, and as soon as I hit it, my plane starts dipping down, and I'm like, you know, maybe that's not worth it. Don't need to wreck my mission and kill a Kerbal right now. So instead, I just don't use it. I time warp myself up to 3 times to get across this ocean a little bit faster. That's the one thing I don't really like about planes is you can only go up to 4 times time warp or physics warp, and you still have all those physics working against you, and every tiny movement is dramatic, and so it's just it's not as comfortable as a rocket. You know, going through space, being able to time warp much higher speeds and without the physics working against us. Yeah, just flying over the ocean. Still have a good amount of fuel left. We're about halfway there. And we've got a little over halfway, half of our fuel left, so it's nice. I've just been full throttle this whole way, and I see the aero forces now. I didn't really pay attention to them at the time, but I see the aero forces now, and I realized that we could have ripped our plane apart. I have just recently been playing around with X-Planes in the Realism Overhaul RP1 save file, and I've been ripping planes apart because we have Ferrum Aero Research mod, so the aerodynamics are a lot more realistic. So we've just been ripping planes apart. So just watching this footage right now and seeing it, I'm like, oh man. I know it's not far that we have on this, but still, aero forces are aero forces. So yeah, so we get to see our little island, the first little view of the ice shelf. So you can see that it's actually lifted above the water. That was fun. I never saw that before. I never made a trip to the South Pole. I've gone to the North Pole, but that was with a rocket lander kind of thing. And I landed basically in the center of the North Pole, so didn't see any shelf. So it's fun. The exploration of this game, we're still learning things. I've got plenty of time, plenty of hours logged in KSP, both vanilla and modded, and still seeing new things every day. And you know what? We are going to be seeing a lot of new things because we have never been to the outer planets. Never been to Duna. I sent a probe there once. I landed a probe on Duna. So I have technically seen it. But other than that, that's it. I've never been to Eve, never been to any of the moons of Jewel, never been to Dress because, you know, Dress doesn't exist. So yeah, exploring. That's going to be the major theme of this series, of Escaping Kerbin. Exploration. So we do a nice easy splashdown, nose first, but we're in the water, we're in the right biome, and as you see right there, our contract completed. So it's excellent. But we grabbed all the science, you know, we grabbed every little bit of science that we could because why not, right? We don't have it. We only needed a few choice experiments for the contract, but you know, let's just grab all of them. Here I tried taking off again from the water, but obviously it didn't work. So yeah, look at all that science. Quite a bit of science. It was nice. That was a good trip. I'm not going to spend it yet because I want to make one more trip out to grab some more science. Once again, we have Kazu as our pilot. I forgot to mention that. Kazu Kerbin is our intrepid airplane pilot. So now we are going to try to head towards the deserts, because I know that's another place that I know that we don't have science, and it's easy to spot. Like the highlands and the lowlands and the mountains and all that sometimes can be a little tricky because they blend in together. So it's a little bit harder to hit exactly the biome you want, and I think the poles and the desert are like freebies because they're just easy to spot, and they're large enough that you can just land. So here we are, another great liftoff. Get pretty excited. I need to turn around and go behind us. We need to go west, obviously, and I get a little bit ahead of myself, and I end up well, you know, crash landing. But luckily, I throw myself out of the cockpit with enough time that Kazu lands safely and alive. And our plane isn't broken, so you know that's good. She's not going to have to write up a damage report. The administration is very thankful for that. So she just goes ahead and tries to get back in. Then we realized we could do some science here. We've got a bunch of experiments to run, so we're just going to go ahead and run that real fast. And then we're going to just recover the plane and then resend it out. So that way we have all that science there. And, you know, we are trying to own our mistakes, and so we're not going to revert that flight and pretend that it didn't happen. Kazu's going to bring that plane in, it's going to get refilled, and going to be sent right back out for its next mission. So now she has to fly, and she's a lot more cautious. She's not going to show off her turning skills. She's just going to go for it. So we activate that waypoint, we bank sideways, and we go ahead and turn ourselves around. And it's nice because it's midday, so we're going to be chasing the sun. So even though it's a little dark here, it will be brighter once we get to our destination. So that's nice. So I climb a little higher just because, I'm going to be dealing with the mountain soon, and time warping was in the cards, so we decided to just go a little bit higher so we didn't have to worry about hitting anything. There is science to do. We keep going over different biomes, and as you can see there from X Science, it tells us we have experiments to run. But overall, we're going to just save our experiments until we get there. And it's a good thing that we did because, well, once again, I'm getting ahead of myself. You'll see in a second. So here we are. We're above the desert. So we just point ourselves down. We come in probably too quickly, but, what can you do? I think about it, I'm like, I could send all my chutes, but it's relatively flat. Like, for the most part, there's a little bit of hill you can see there. There's a little bit of an angle. But for the most part, it's relatively flat. So we might as well just try to come in for a regular landing and not rely on our chutes. So we've touched down, I throw on the brakes, and quickly do the science just in case we crash and burn. But no, we come to a perfect stop. Like, I don't know what it is. I just, I've been getting better at planes, so it's been nice. I used to never be able to land without parachutes, and so, I feel like I'm learning. We're learning together, I'm doing this, for the videos, and so therefore, it is y'all that are pushing me forward and teaching me these new things. That's a nice little thumbnail there. A little shot for posterity for the history of the space program. And since we have a little bit of fuel left, we go ahead and turn on all our engines. And we're going to take off. We're going to try to land in those mountains over there, because I know that the mountains are their own biome as well. And we still have one Science Junior, which means that we still have a full set of experiments left undone. Yeah, so that's why I was saying that it was good that I didn't grab those experiments earlier over the places where we hadn't done them, because we had done some of the experiments in that area, but not everything. So it's good to just save our workspace for something that completely new. As you can see here, I decided the mountains were too treacherous to try to land in a normal way, so I just threw on the parachutes, but I did throw them on a little early. Once again, just doing all the science as quickly as possible, so that way we can get it if we wreck ourselves. Go ahead and do the EVA report and the surface sample. Realized that there was a telemetry report left to do, so I go ahead and send it. And I was going to try to get a new one, but we didn't have any communications on this dish, so I couldn't actually send it, so we were only able to grab the one telemetry report. But there we go. We got a bunch of science. As you can see here, we have like 400 some odd science now, and that's going to do us very well in the next episode. So anyways, that is all that I have for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving me a like, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.